Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to be compiling a list of tanks that you owe it to yourself to play. These will not be the best tanks, and frankly some of them are just bad, but they redeem themselves with some form of novelty or some quirky elements that make them uniquely fun and engaging, certainly for me personally. Some are premium, some are collector's vehicles, some are tech-tree tanks that you probably never thought twice about, and some you may have to keep an eye out for at certain special events. But let's start off with a little tier 2 vehicle, the tier 7 combat car. Now this tank can lay claim to many pinnacles. For instance, it has the largest clip capacity in the entirety of World of Tanks, clocking in at 50 shells, with an average clip damage of 400 HP. Furthermore, it boasts the shortest shell delay of any vehicle in the entire game, a measly 0.11 seconds before it spits out the next shell in its autoloader. This is even more remarkable now after changes to the Panzer B2, where it got cripplingly nerfed. This is one of the few vehicles in the game that does not have any premium ammo. One shell type and 2,700 shells. Somehow. There's 4 people in this thing. Also, highest ammo count on any tank in the entire game. In conclusion, it's a fun, nifty vehicle, it's unique, and while it's by no means overpowered, it's certainly worth a gander if you fancy it. Moving up to tier 3, of course, we've got the tier 3 German light tank, a Panzer 2J. Now, you need to adopt an orphan after every game in this tank just to break even on karma points. And I'm right, Timmy. Fuck you, Steve. A tier 3 German light tank with armour rivaling and in one case exceeding that of this tier 5 Russian heavy. This is debatably the most overpowered, game-breaking and disgusting tank ever introduced into the game tier for tier. The only caveat stopping it from achieving era-defining godship is its lack of mobility and shockingly mediocre weaponry. With a base pen of 23, that won't reliably pen the front of a Panzer B2, let alone equal tier heavies, meaning yes, most if not all players of this vehicle abandon moral compass and principle entirely and load it with full premium, laying waste to the inexperienced players which wargaming continuously fuck over by selling tanks that are really fucking fun. Conclusion, retardedly overpowered, sinful as all hell, but if you got the spare £80 when it's on sale, you do you. Moving on from one of the most OP tanks ever to one that's had a none too graceful departure from once greener pastures. The T-18. I used to call it the Pimpmobile. It was a little tier 2 American tank destroyer with ludicrous frontal armour and a massive fake-off dirt gun. It was popular, to say the least. Now, however, it laments and languishes as an SPG. However, while its class has changed, its armour profile did not. So you've got a tier 3 arty with 50mm of frontal armour that goes at 50 km per hour. Because fuck it. There are a number of tanks at tier 3 that will not be able to damage that reliably. So if you're ever after some low tier arty shotgun memes, this little T-18, looking very sorry for itself, may not have fought its final battle just yet. Someone, not a powerful tank by any means, perhaps more of a meme tank to show off to your friends like, hey Dave, look how stupid this is! Hell, just play it with your friends and have a laugh, you might get the enemy team a laugh too. Onwards and back to another premium tank. This is the tier 3 French tank destroyer, the SEM-36 Pack 40. And what's so special about this vehicle is that it has 400 meters of base view range. That is insane. 900 and... That's better than the Tier 10 French light tank, the AMX 105. Combine that with the fact that this is an old meta TD, being premium, it still benefits from the old class bonus to camo after shooting, and you've got a vehicle that, even while firing, is going to outspot anything that it could ever meet in the game. So, if you want to be the king of vision in the low tiers, grab a caminet, grab some binos, and keep an eye out for this vehicle. Here's one that many of you may not know. Now, the high tier Italian vehicles are in line, currently awaiting a crippling dumbass nerf. But it's in the low tiers that we find ourselves something special. The P26-40. A Tier 4 Italian medium tank. I'm sure many of you have overlooked this vehicle, many of you have played it and dismissed it as your run-of-the-mill stepping stone style tank. However, it has an odd quirk, which is quite shockingly good HE pen. This 75mm gun has 70mm of pen with its high explosive. Now, there's a lot of tanks at Tier 4 that will not stand up to that kind of punishment even frontally. Oh, Ian, stop.
Dude.
Stop, he's too young!
Jesus Christ.
It's really not okay.
It's really not, dude.
How did they do that? How did they not realise that this might be a bit...
Oh my God.
A bit, you know...
Oh,
I didn't know. I keep hitting him. I'm ramming him. Fuck it. To put that in perspective, assuming you're penning these shots, you have a base damage per minute of 2,607. That is insane. That's better than the Comet, that's better than the T34, that's up there with Tier 8 and 9 medium tanks, like an Object 416, it's better than a T34, better than a 430. Madness. When fully equipped, you can push this thing to almost 3,300 dBm on a Tier 4 vehicle. However, if you really want to push the meat, kiss RNG's boots, go for broke. The previous 75mm gun, while it loses 10mm of HE pen, the other stats are the same, but its rate of fire goes up. Meaning, if you choose this gun, load it with full HE, kick this thing out to the nines, you'd be walking around at Tier 4 with a theoretical DPM of 3,446.79 at Tier 4. Now, I wouldn't recommend this. With the kind of pen values at play here, that 10mm that you lose on the HE pen is significant. But if you're in it for that laugh, if you're in it for that meme, it is there, it is possible. So, I guess if you want to, load up that HE, avoid tracks and spaced armor, and make this thing sing.
It's disgusting. I hate it.
No, you don't.
I fucking hate it, dude. I hate just killing seals.
Moving on to this beautiful bastard, this German Tier 4 tank destroyer, the Hetzer. It combines impressive frontal armor with a 105mm cannon, which complements beautifully its frankly startling mobility. This is a tank not out of place in your garage regardless of your playstyle, it's just that kind of vehicle. If you play it like that is. You see, for some reason, this gun has armor-piercing shells. These are utterly pointless. The only shells the Hetzer should carry are its high explosive, as the main ammo type, and heat shells for pounding enemy heavies. That's your lot. The only thing really letting the Hetzer down is its abysmal view range, joint worst in the entire game with, believe it or not, this Tier 2 American light tank, the Tetra. Joins the Hetzer stretching for that worst view range title, 260 meters. That's worse than every Tier 1 tank in the entire game, so you won't be passive scouting with this beast. Poor view range though, it is not enough to take it off my list, a staple of the low tier seal clubbing gameplay lifestyle. The Hetzer will always Hetz. Okay. Wow, you went way too overzealous on that one. Holy shit! Whoops.
It's a turbo Hetzer.
Now, sticking with the nation, but switching to a premium. Tier 4 German Heavy, the Panzer B2, is one that you might not see that often, purely because in order to see it, you pretty much have to be playing a Tier 4 vehicle, as this is one of the few vehicles in the entire game with Apex matchmaking, meaning it can never be anything other than top tier unless platooned with a non-Apex vehicle. This means that in addition to its moderate to impressive all-round armour, its rapid-fire gun, pick up this vehicle and you'll never again have to engage a KV-1 or OI experimental. You'll merely perpetually face those who are likely ill-equipped to oppose you, making this the tank of choice for that seal clubber that is just after that relaxed, stress-free lifestyle. At least until I come up against the Matilda, Tier 4 British medium? Apparently it's a medium tank. This has been a classic low-tier dick measure for as long as I've been wandering the streets of Himmelsdorf. Pairing a lumbering lack of flexibility with a ridiculously powerful gun and excellent all-round armour, certain tanks in the game cease to be a threat to you entirely, unless they get very creative. A god-tier vehicle when met with same tier and below opposition. That domination factor has a sharp fall-off, however, when confronted with its potential opposition. A laundry list of vehicles that can very easily dismantle this vehicle with absurd ease. That is the price you pay for better armour and firepower capabilities than the Panzer B2, the pleasure of encountering vehicles 2 tiers in excess of what that thing can mean. That said, the Matilda, with its very impressive penetration, will hardly ever find itself helpless, even when outmatched, so you'll likely walk away with at least a small amount of compensation damage when you get utterly slaughtered. Unless, of course, you're going for novelty value. You see, the Matilda has another gun. It has 3 in all, but one of them is a 3-inch howitzer. This gun, with its high explosive ammo, joins the record books with the slowest shell travel speed in World of Tanks, 182 meters per second. You can go to lunch while these shells are flying through the air.
I don't know.
Where's that one going?
I don't know. I'm hitting.
What
I'm
are
shooting
you
at.
doing?
I'm shooting at the same spot, but it's not spotted anymore. So the shell is doing something weird.
And for anything other than comedy value, I don't recommend using a gun that the enemy can outplay by listing lazily to the left. All in all, OP when top tier, when it's not, it's okay, it's a worthwhile investment. Now, here I'm presenting to you an M4A1 Sherman, but it would be prudent of me to say there are myriads vehicles around this tier, particularly American vehicles, that can be bundles of fun when you equip them with their 105mm howitzers. For the most part, while a howitzer is essential as a component, the tank you choose to use it on is largely down to personal preference. Some have better armour, some have better mobility. All can be a great laugh in the right circumstance, so this is my nod to those kind of vehicles. Pressing on into Tier 5, I'll make a passing mention of the T34. Not to be confused with the American Premium Heavy, this vehicle gets overlooked by a lot of people, dismissed as mediocre, and while that's not an incorrect analysis per se, it does omit a certain trait of the tank, which is this 57mm disc cannon. Equip this gun, and suddenly the vehicle surges up in DPM, leapfrogging the Cromwell and Comet with numbers befitting of a Tier 8 or 9 medium rather than a Tier 5. This gun certainly has disadvantages, but with excellent premium pen to deal with the hard targets, decent mobility, and incredible raw damage output potential, this might be a vehicle worth looking into if you're a fan of rapid fire guns and enjoy gameplay around these mid tiers where the meta hasn't necessarily settled down yet. Now, though lesser spotted and critically endangered, this vehicle is still occasionally sold on the black market. The Elephant, or the 105 Left 18B2, is widely regarded as both one of the most overpowered and annoying arty currently in the game, with a ridiculous rate of fire and only 7mm less pen than the 240mm cannon found on the T92. It's easy to see why. Not only has this vehicle got the best view range on any arty in the entire game, 390 meters, joining the INX 105 and T100 LT, this thing can outspot anything it can possibly meet on the battlefield and promptly shut it down with multiple ammo choices, including a highly punishing heat shell. A ridiculous vehicle, able to perma-track its enemies from half the map away. If you're an arty fan, this one must be in your collection. Now, it would be morally problematic to not include this one, the Tier 5 British medium tank, the Cavalier. By all accounts, a pretty mediocre tank. That is until you mount the 20.7-inch howitzer on it and suddenly it becomes a mediocre tank with a big gun. It's not great. What I can say is it's enjoyable to dirt people. Mount the gun, load HE, and remember, with these sorts of guns you can shoot the enemy when they're behind cover with a little third-person fuckery. It's not that fast, it's not that good, but getting into the right game, and hell yeah, you can really enjoy yourself. Okay, here's one that I include on a conditional basis. That condition being, you gotta have platoon mates. The VK3601H is a Tier 6 German Heavy. However, it used to be a medium. And one thing that didn't change when its class did was top speed. Meaning you have here a 43-ton German Heavy with 100mm of frontal armor capable of going 50.5 kilometers per hour. It would be a ramming machine were it not for that engine power. 550 horsepower struggles to propel this thing up to its top speed with any manual gusto. Unless you do what we do.
A chin one attached?
Oh yeah. So I know a lot of you folks out there who've been around for a while have done all kinds of experiments with the duck train. Okay, just gotta get out of our way.
That man was stuck. We were being a helpful
Didn't even
train.
stop you.
Take 2 Cromwells and stuff them right up its arse. Suddenly, this thing will go well in excess of that 50.5 kilometers an hour top speed, reaching and exceeding 60 kilometers per hour on slopes. This setup can be monstrous fun. Train controlled impact for 15% more ramming damage, grab 2 repair kits and a med kit, and go ram the ever-loving hell out of the enemy. Bonus, next patch, looks like this tank's getting 140 more hit points, so won't that be swell? More ramming damage! So I would be burnt at the stake were I not to include this one, the only, the V2. This Tier 6 Russian Heavy is a classic. Knock knock.
Who's there?
V2, comrade!
I saw that coming as soon as you said knock knock.
Featuring a 152mm dirt gun capable of delivering 910 damage from a single shot with HE, and anywhere from 200 to 400 with a non-penetrating hit. It also carries premium armored piercing shells for those juicy Tiger 1s and such. You'll find one of these bad boys in almost every Tier 6 game, and for good reason. While the armor is mediocre, it will provoke bounces occasionally, and no matter what you oppose, the enemy will fear your retaliation, as no matter what they are, you can damage them. Conclusion. It's the king of dirt. I don't know what more you could want. How about a V2 skin? Link to our Modpacks in the description. So I was going to include the Tier 6 German tank destroyer, the Dickermax, on account of its novel 15 degrees of gun depression and ability to clean up the enemy. However, I decided not to, so back to you, Dick.
Good evening. Welcome to Channel 5. I'm Dick Ermax. Tonight on Channel 5, has the laws of physics been broken? Or have the laws of physics been broken? Fuck me. Ah, dear.
It's okay, this happens on set all the time.
That's okay.
It's like a flashback to me.
I'm just giving you blooper material, mate. So consider it a gift. Don't expect anything else.
This seems a little idiotic of me to recommend a tank that some people may struggle to acquire, but it's not the first one on this list that fits that description, so hell with it. The Excalibur, like the T28 HTC, is a very novel tank. Being a tankless tank destroyer doesn't bother it because clearly it forgot it is one. It's not unbalanced, but it is novel. Like, me and Ian at the start of the game, we're not going to drive off quickly, we're just going to turn and look at each other. But we're going to do that entirely with our tanks. Right, Ian, ready?
You don't even have camo.
Hey, how you doing, man? You wanna go and shoot some stuff? Overzealous mobility combined with joyous comedic potential. Don't zoom by this thing on your quest for the 279E because it certainly has qualities that can be appreciated. It's not an amazing tank, but being the first of the second campaign mission tanks that you can acquire might be worth the investment. Tier 6 truly does warm my heart with the collection of entertaining vehicles that it has. Another premium tank here, the SU-100 Why God Why. This vehicle has a fairly interesting quirk, which is that unlike most tanks that when switching to premium simply acquire more penetration, the box tank actually loses pen while gaining alpha damage, meaning its premium shell has 510 alpha damage. That is 20 more than the IS-7. And yes, while your pen value does fall, against fellow tier 6s and below, that won't present an issue. So yes, one that's a huge, lumbering beast, one that's profile is massive and its mobility is piss. It's up to you whether the pure comedy value of violating someone that severely is a fair trade-off for that. Not a good tank, but a fun one, for a short life and a merry one. And now getting close to my preferred tier in the game, here tier 7, I'm going to include the collector's vehicle, the Russian tier 7 medium tank, the KV-13. Now this vehicle hits mediocrity in a lot of attributes. However, one thing it has going for it is that its hull armor is exactly the same as that of the IS, which is a tier 7 Russian heavy tank. And yet mobility wise, it feels far closer to a medium than a heavy. So you have armor blended with mobility. Pair that with a capable gun and you've got a medium tank that can adopt a slightly more aggressive playstyle than its peers. One that I've found highly enjoyable in games that I've played in it. Bonus, being a collector's vehicle and not a popular one at that, it's very easy to receive very high W&H scores when you play this tank. So if for some reason you are more stats focused, this could be for you. In summary, the only bad trait is its lack of gun depression, so as long as you take care of engagements on range lines, it's a very forgiving and fun vehicle to play. Another pick here that comes with a caveat, the 87, the tier 7 British tank destroyer, one of them. Certainly the most capable tier for tier of your experience up this line so far. However, given the manner in which this progression up these tanks is tailored, it's highly likely you missed out on the experience of playing the 87 with the stock gun. Now, don't mistake me, the stock gun has traits that could be considered tragic. The base pen, for one thing. However, with a 1.09 second shell delay, 10 second reload, 75 alpha with 10 shells, this thing can actually bite when it finds the right target. Though, to fully appreciate this vehicle, I recommend getting friends. 3 of these things, loaded with full premium and abusing the characteristically high hit pools of these British slabs, are absolute madness. Yes, you encounter a lot of stuff that you can't pen, But at that point, you just keep going. Eventually, one of you will get that booty, and this gameplay and our experience has resulted in some hilarious circumstances. In summary, not a tank that I recommend alone, but if you have some friends who are willing to suffer the 82 and the 88, they are good friends, keep them, love them, I promise you a good experience on the other side. So, hopping to a tier 7 Russian premium tank destroyer, the Su-122-44, proud holder of my highest XP score ever in World of Tanks, 2,970 in a tier 9 game on Himmelsdorf. What makes this vehicle special is it combines 3 factors: DPM, mobility, and armor. While it lacks in hit points and view range especially, this vehicle is still a powerhouse. 7.5 rounds per minute with 390 alpha damage. This thing, when kicked out, can reach upwards of 3,600 damage per minute, and while its effective DPM may be lower due to its lackluster pen, that's where the front armor comes into play. 90mm on a heavy slope with a thick gun mantlet. 90mm is the same as is found on the tier 8 ISU-152, but on this vehicle a tier lower it's angled far better. This armor profile combined with the exceptional mobility denotes the playstyle of the tank. It's a bully, finding, hunting same tier and lower lights and mediums, overpowering them with unparalleled fury. This is not a tank to play at range, unless you find yourself in a bottom tier game, and even then that lack of penetration will limit you heavily. This vehicle should be played up front, pushing with your lights and mediums wherever possible. In conclusion, this is another one of these vehicles that when it's top tier, it can be utterly devastating, racking up the damage like no other vehicle can. However, when it's bottom tier, it can feel very, very limiting due to its disadvantages. Premium. Here's a little French light tank, the AMX 1357. Now, oddly enough, this vehicle merits inclusion on this list for a comparable reason to the 87. It has a quirky gun. Featuring, as many AMX tanks do, an autoloader, this thing spits out shells every second when it's unloaded, earning its nickname from myself, the Omnon Tank. It is inordinately satisfying to appear behind someone, unload a shell into their ass every second for 8 seconds, and then skip off merrily into the night for 16 seconds only to come back and do it again. It's certainly not got the highest clip potential. It's mere 720, dwarfed by the T-71's 910 as an example. But it's both the novelty, the high camo, the good mobility, and overall flexibility of this vehicle that I find myself consistently enjoying. Bear in mind that, much like the Tier 10 Batchat, a stringent ammo limit may rear its ugly head in those good games. On average, this vehicle can, with every shot connecting and dealing damage, put out 5,040 hit points of damage. That's not a lot of wiggle room. In summary, it's a fun, sneaky mobile tank with a novel gun, and it's a decent moneymaker if you play your cards right too. Now on to tier premium. Let's kick it off with the KV-5, a tank that regularly saw far more dominant performances than it does now, mainly due to the work of some of the future stars of this list. However, the KV-5, even with the long-awaited buffs to the much maligned KV-4, will still have certain advantages that earn it a spot here. First and foremost, the top speed. Now, it's not often that 10 km an hour will translate into such a drastic potential differential, but when you're talking about taking command of over 100 tons of Russian behemoth, the 10 km an hour difference between these two vehicles solidifies the KV-5's place as a prodigious rammer. Now, its ability to reach and achieve that 40 km per hour is limited. Once it does, there are few things that won't flee from its wrath. So far as general gameplay goes, its DPM can be somewhat formidable when employed, however its ability to enact that statistic when on the warpath is questionable, given its poor penetration. In addition, despite the bust to its old R2-D2 here on the front, along with the other cupolas, they still stick out like sore thumbs. So make sure to rename your radio operator to someone you don't like. Where are you going? Come back and love me! Come back! All in all, not a good moneymaker, not really a good tank. But heck, stuff an SCM-50J up its ass and roll out. Right, yet another premium tier 8 Russian heavy tank. This one featured in last year's Christmas loot boxes, the Object 7032. Now, I'm of the opinion that the double-barreled heavies are one of the best introductions to the game Wargaming have ever done, based purely on the sound design alone. But while the Tech 20 Tier 8 offers more flexibility with its double-barreled 100mm, there really is nothing quite like having this double-barrel 122 on a Tier 8 platform. I'm gonna get shot by a Waffenträger, but... Alpha damage!
Like, what the hell just hit?
What? Oh, it's just a tier 8 premium tank. Well, the armor isn't anything to write home about. It's no defender. It really is all about that firepower. This thing is a fantastic moneymaker. Plus, offering a little elevation in skill count with your single to double shot management is a great pick for people of almost all skill level. In conclusion, if you ever get your hands on this vehicle, just turn your volume up. I'd be perhaps remiss not to mention it, the ISTO, another tier 8 Russian premium heavy. This is perhaps one of the most overpowered premium tanks tier for tier in the entire game. Pretty much an IS-3 with an auto-reloader. However, the thing that makes it so shockingly biased and broken is instead of the shells taking longer to reload if you fire too many, instead, the more shells you fire, the quicker you reload. Absolutely ridiculous. 3 shells, 390 alpha damage, and no penalty for blowing your load, as you'd find in the Italian auto-reloaders, which need a nerf apparently because they're too overpowered. Go figure on that one. This tank, to put it in perspective, if it fires all 3 shells, it then reloads quicker than the standard IS-3. If we're talking base reload. Even if you put a gun runner on the IS-3, you can't mount one on the IS-3A. The IS-3A, off the top of my head, reloads 0.27 of a second slower with an auto-reloader with 2 bonus shells. I cannot fathom how Wargaming can be that dumb. I deserve this.
Damn.
Ian, you missed. Whatever she... Oh no, you missed again. Dude, whatever should you do? Oh. Oh, you found another shell in there somewhere, did you?
My reload was that good.
Conclusion. Quite possibly the most overpowered tier 8 premium tank in the entire game. Now, here's a pick that will give you both comedy value and genuine combat capability. The AMX M449 French tier 8 premium heavy. This is one that I talked on in my Be Unstoppable video, mentioning the fact that when flat on, its lower plate is far thicker than the upper plate. This prompts some odd gameplay on the part of a skillful driver, whereby you present the lower plate deliberately as a target for the enemy. This results in a huge amount of wasted shells and block damage, and pairing this impressive frontal armor profile with its mediocre mobility and high base pen, this tank turns out to be a pretty consistent moneymaker, if that's what you're looking for. All in all, a beastly brawler turns from capable to exceptional if you know about its lower plate quirk. Okay, another reward vehicle merits inclusion on this list, the tier 8 British medium tank, the Kaimiya. This was recently featured on the channel in this gameplay review, and live gameplay linked in the description. This is my favourite vehicle of the 6 total that I received from the personal missions. A 127mm gun with 440 alpha damage at tier 8 on a platform with this mobility is fantastic. Yes, its DPM is poor, yes, its armour is mediocre, but having the ability to trade favourably with equal tier heavies is an attribute not found on any other medium tank at the tier. I will note that I've been thinking of putting together a series of videos covering any and all of the personal missions, giving my tips and recommendations on how to complete them. If you'd like to see that, let me know. To sum up, a vehicle that's not overpowered, and yet just very, very satisfying to play. A reward for completing missions that, while difficult for the most part, are not unreasonable. Okay, back to the French, the Barosque tier 8 French premium medium tank. This is one of the most pleasurable tanks that I've played as of late, a rare treat of a vehicle that manages to be fun and engaging without being overpowered. Its unique 2-shell autoloader merits constant vigilance and caution while playing, as unlike most autoloaders where missing a shell is perhaps a sixth or at most a quarter of your potential damage, in a Barosque, missing 1 shell is 50% of your assumed damage. And miss or fail you might well do, this gun having frankly woeful accuracy and aim time. Combined with a poor base penetration, ranged combat is certainly dangerous. Then again, close combat, while mitigating the poor gun stats, it brings its own issues. When attempting to flank an enemy, you may be unceremoniously introduced to the poor traverse speed of the Barosque, which is a surprising disadvantage for it to have. But even with these negative attributes, the tank's mobility, camera reaching and ambush potential elevate it as a vehicle, providing fantastic flexibility and carry potential. All in all, this is a wonderfully high skill cap vehicle, and if you'd like to see more gameplay of it, you can check out this 2 versus 9 gameplay that we had and posted on the channel. That's in the description as well. And of course, the tier 8 premium French light tank, the one, the only, the Steven 90. Speaking of, I need to speak to Wargaming about the royalties for this tank, because I am willing to bet that I have been responsible for more even 90 sales than all of their promotional material combined. In any case, a bad vehicle. An unquestionably bad vehicle, bad view range, bad gun, bad hitball, atrocious DPM. The attributes that make this tank special are threefold: the profile, the top speed, and the camera rating. This is a tiny vehicle, allowing it to hide in places you never thought possible. Its impressive top speed allows it to get there before opposing light tanks, and its camo rating, the highest on the move camo of any vehicle in the entire game, potentially reaching 49.1%. This tank is a meme. I'll stress again, this is not a good tank. I've had good games in it. Check out this 1 versus 5k damage game, but that was achieved mainly on my merits as a player rather than the capabilities of the vehicle. I believe I was the first to tread the kind of ground that is being scuffed up on the footpath now in this tank. I achieved a great number of one small step for tank moments in it. And as much as I love that, and I encourage people to pick up this tank and do the same, remember that it's not a good vehicle. It is not a good moneymaker. It is not a good combatant. And it's likely that if you yourself try to emulate what I do in the tank, you'll meet with the wrong end of a shell more often than not. In conclusion, a good player can do god tier things in this vehicle. It is one of those vehicles that in that one perfect situation can do things that no other vehicle in the game could. But so far as consistency, money making, general capability goes, it is a very mediocre tank. So jumping up to tier 9, leaving tier premium behind, we're going to look at a tech tree vehicle, an American Tier 9 tank destroyer, the T-95, this American slab, while it can't claim the best frontal armor in the game, that, on paper at least, goes to the Badger with 355mm. Here, 305mm and a lumbering double-tracked silhouette justify the name the Doom Turtle. Not nearly as slow as it once was, formerly being the slowest vehicle in the game with a top speed of 13 km per hour. That title now belongs to the TOG at 14 km per hour. This tank, wielding a 155mm gun, is a force to be reckoned with. Another vehicle that excels like no other in that one perfect situation. So take a toolbox, full repairs, 2 repair kits, and begin ploughing forward. In summary, potentially a frustrating vehicle when the game doesn't fall into your lap. It's hard to chase damage and adapt to new game states, but if you play it long enough, you are almost guaranteed to have a remarkable and fun game at some point. What-to-do, another Tier 9 tech-tree vehicle, the T-49, a Tier 9 American light tank. This thing holds a special place in my heart. Capable of mounting a 152mm derp gun, this thing can be so much fun I suspect it's illegal in some states. Now, this comes with the caveat of a dreadful reload and woefully bad gun stats, but unlike other light tanks, where you might feel compelled to equip binos or a caminet or optics, the T-49 is all about the gun. My recommended setup would be vert stabs, a rammer, and either a gun range drive or vents. Do not make the mistake of thinking this vehicle is a scout. It's not, it just happens to be able to if the time calls for it. But it's not its primary role on the battlefield. This tank, with its high explosive, which should be your standard ammo, can engage and present a danger to even the most heavily armoured opposition in a way that no other Tier 9 light tank can. And having that asset, that ability to reliably do damage to any target, combined with the mobility to be where you need to be, the flexibility of that 10 degrees of gun depression and 410 meters of base view range offer is incredible. I'm compelled to note that while I do absolutely stand by the use of the 152mm gun on the platform, the 90mm gun offered on the T-49 provides exceptional adaptability, with impressive DPM and more amicable soft stats. If you didn't want to play the T-49 as what it's meant to be and wanted to make it a more capable, multi-purpose scout, this gun would be the superior option, reducing the necessity of firepower-orientated equipment and freeing up space to utilize optics and other such equipment. All in all, it's a fantastic light tank that offers 2 fairly distinctive playstyles based on your gun choice. Whatever your gameplay in light tanks tends to resemble, you can probably find it with the T-49. I thoroughly recommend the vehicle. Hitting Tier 10, of course, jumping straight into the Tier 10 British tank destroyer, the FV4005, or the Shitbarn. My favoured vehicle of the 2 British tank destroyers that offer this 183mm gun, the largest on any tank in the game. Despite having paper armour on the turret, despite its reverse speed being crippling, despite it being a massive box, it does not matter, because the gun. Goes without saying, any game in the Shitbarn or Death Star, you must be carrying your premium hash, 230mm of pen, 1750 average damage. When it hits, oh, it hits hard. I'm the father in this dysfunctional tank relationship.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Later object. This is not mine. This is not the Peabody's outhouse. This is the Shitbarn.
You did alright.
As you see, there's no outhouse door on the back of it.
Hey, Wagwan, what's up? That did not go well.
Even on a non-penetrating hit is likely to take a quarter of the enemy's HP just for shits and giggles. Conclusion. Epic, epic fun. Most likely, yeah, you'll have your ass kicked on occasion, maybe multiple occasions, but it's all worth it for those wonderful, wonderful one-shots. Now, to the French, 2 Tier 10 tank destroyers, the Foch B and the Foch 155, featured recently in my 3 Foches are ridiculous video, linked in the description. The magnets of platoons of these things are already apparent, but even solo, tanks like the Foch B with its 6 shells and clip average of 2,400, and the Foch 155 with its 155, 750 alpha, 2,250 clip potential are potential incarnate. They are certainly worth acquiring if the concept of utterly slaughtering an opponent is appealing to you. To sum up, powerful vehicles. One you may need to keep an eye on the bond shop or the black market to try and get a hold of. The other one requires potentially a challenging grind, but they will all pay dividends when they end up taking up residence in your garage. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is my list. What have I missed? I imagine there's a few that you right now are thinking, how could that be not on this list? I would apologize. But from my point of view, this is pretty comprehensive. This is a list of tanks that have just satisfied me and will continue to do so until Wargaming nurse them to shit because they hate me. So, let me know what I missed. Comment if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel, we got all sorts of World of Tanks content, and yeah, thank you very, very much for watching.